Is this thing live? Is it finally working? I think it's working. What's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a phenomenal, whatever day you're watching this. So, as I am rambling on, in the background, I am actually going through and tidying up a tune. It's the tune that is on my F 150. And it's not that I'm new to tuning necessarily, but I am a little bit new to Ford, and there can be some things that realistically shouldn't make a difference that seem to be making a difference. So I am fixing some things. So anyway, how's everybody out there doing? Hope y'all are doing great. Just trying to button this up. You know, one of the funny things about anytime you're putting a tune together, it's really easy to just, I don't know, just canned tune, freaking let it rip. I get kind of in the weeds a little bit. I'll start to really dissect shift points. That's my thing. If you need a tune nitpick to death on shift points, I'm your guy. You know, it's funny, being married, you know, you learn that your partner has certain attributes that are superior to yours, and you have certain attributes that are superior to your partners. And my wife is really good at scrutinizing things. Something's out of place, she'll find it. That's where I'm at, though, with my transmission shift timing. And you can get a little, bit, what's the best way to put it? You can get a little bit deep into, you know, trying to make some changes. You get lost in the sauce, so to speak. And I had to fix a couple of things. You have to remember there's a downshift map. Yeah, good stuff. So anyways, let me check in with you guys real quick. Itches in, Skids, good evening. Got the ball guy with the shades and the flex. I like it. Nitro's in, Marco is in, and DM is in. Got some of my motorcycle fam in the house. So we have the what is it? The gentleman's ride for Triumph coming up. And it looks like if I decide I'm going to do the distinguished gentleman's ride, which is a big ride that Triumph puts on, it's for men's health, men's mental health, things like that. It looks like I'm going to be riding a 2024 fully kitted out Thruxton in that ride. Black on blacks, very rare bike. It's almost as rare, or maybe even more rare, than the final edition Thruxtons. Anyway, it's got the full fairing. It's got the full kit. So, yeah, mustache is coming in nicely. Thank you. But yeah, I will be on that rig. If not, well, I'll be on that one. If for some reason that one needs to stay at base camp for display purposes, the other bike will be the green and silver Thruxton. And I did get to uncrate one of the final edition bikes today. So that was pretty cool. If you guys aren't into bikes, Triumph has a bit of an iconic motorcycle that they're putting the squash to. They're not making it anymore after 2024, at least in well, they're not making it anymore. And so they have these final edition bikes. They have the original script on the tank for Triumph. They're actually a really, really pretty motorcycle. So much so that Smoking Hot was with me when I went by the dealership today. And she's just like, get one. But I think all the allocations are spoken for. But that all black one that got imported is not spoken for. So we'll see. There may be a new edition. We'll find out. Oh, Noab is in. What's up, y'all? Nitro crew, been looking into the Gen 4 Coyote. Seems like the cylinder deactivation is a bit of a problem. Do you see a possibility of tuning it out? I already have. I couldn't find a good solution on the searches. HP tuners. So to give you guys an idea, in my tune, I've turned off the cylinder deactivation. And what else did I kill in that thing? Oh, the auto start stop. That Gen 4 has auto start stop for the trucks. And mine is no more in the tune. So I got both of those knocked out. One of the first things that I did. And just to let you know, I know you can't see because I don't have the whole screen sharing thing, which I used to have and now I don't have anymore. But under system, if you go HP Tuners under system, you'll find your auto start stop. You just disable that globally. And then for cylinder deactivation, it is, let me find it for you. I believe it is under general tab. I gotta find it. This is one of the things that I'm not used to speaking Ford yet. Let's do a function control. Here we go. Control N. Let's see. Oh, damn, I'm messing this all up. Auto. Okay, so deactivation. If I can find it for you, I'll tell you exactly where to go. It's when I'm doing this. I will find it eventually. While we're chatting here, I'll just keep looking for it. But I searched it out in HP Tuners and killed it. A variable displacement, I think is what it's called. There you go. It's under fuel. So you kill it under the fuel table in the engine tab. So anyway, that's what I'm up to motorcycle wise. I did play around with the tune on the Bonneville a little bit. And what I discovered with the Bonneville is that I tried throwing more fuel at it and, to go along with the exhaust, although it is an X pipe. And because it's an X pipe, it does still offer up a decent amount of back pressure. And I could see that there is a way you can, I don't really know if it correlates, but it's always something that seemed to work out. Anytime you have a more restrictive exhaust, you can see the net effect of that all the way through the engine. And this is why it's so important that you have a matched system in general. So this will apply to cars too. But what I'm looking for is what's known as a KPA delta, which is to say, what is the barometric pressure outside? And then what is the barometric pressure inside the intake manifold? And if you have an extremely free-flowing intake manifold, you can get ambient barometric pressure inside the intake manifold, which is really good. And what that means is you are using all of your cubic inches at your disposal. What a lot of folks don't understand about engines is that when you are throttling the engine, there is a vacuum inside the intake manifold. And that vacuum represents, on a percentage wise, it's not an exact thing, but it's a good mind exercise, thought exercise, the displacement of the engine that you're working with. So if your manifold KPA, your kilopascals, your manifold atmospheric pressure is 1/2 of ambient. So instead of being roughly 30, it's 15. Then you're working with half of the displacement that you have. You can only fill half of the cylinder, so to speak. That's the available air pressure, if you will. Well, if you have a restricted exhaust, you're not able to evacuate the cylinder as well. Sometimes that can be seen in the KPA in the intake manifold. It's just too much of a restriction. And that's kind of what I'm getting with this bike. I've got an improvement in KPA, the same way that I was showing an improvement with KPA with the F-150. But by freeing up some intake and in the case of the bike, making the exhaust a bit more free, that was helping to evacuate the cylinder, which then creates a lower than it was before exhaust, after exhaust, cylinder pressure when the intake valve opens. There's not any latent cylinder gases or anything else like that that just didn't get evaporated. That takes up space. Well, that's some nerd shit right there, wasn't it? Anyway, that's where camshaft timing comes in play. That's where exhaust and camshaft plus your intake manifold, all of it is a matched system. And you can see that working really well with the F-150, where there are areas where I will have greater than ambient pressure in the intake manifold, because the cam timing, the intake runner dimensions, the plenum volume, the exhaust efficiency, all of that will be working in concert extremely efficiently. And they talk about that stacking effect being a mild supercharging. Well, you can think of it like that, but in this case, you're literally getting a rush into the manifold that is showing a greater pressure than ambient. That's some pretty trick stuff. I mean, boost is just that. It is an increase in pressure in the intake manifold over available ambient, I should say. Come on, thing, work. There we go. So in saying all of that, it's a long way to get to the point. I get it. But the idea with this was to try to get that Bonneville as efficient as I possibly could. And I kind of got it there. I mean, the thing's running really, really good. Nitro, damn, thank you, brother. Saying, thanks, B, you're the only one that gave me a solid answer and where to look at for Ford. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Well, I'm glad I could help. And again, if you've got HP Tuner software, let me put it back up for you so you can, if you need to, jot it down and just fetch us back later. But for your, hang on just a second. Let me get it back pulled up here. Control in. Let's see. Let me pull it back up. Man, I wish this thing was. So it's called variable displacement. It's under lean fuel saving. And where you'll find that in HP Tuners is go into your fuel tab, click on your lean fuel saving, and it's the very first one, VDE, which is variable displacement. And you just click on it as disabled. And again, to knock out your auto start stop, just go to system, and it's the second one down, auto start stop, click it, disable. Fun fact on that, you won't even get the icon in your dash anymore. It'll just not be there. Also, I'm not a fan of any of the displacement on demand type stuff. I know that the fourth gen oil pump is significantly improved, and part of that improvement was for the DoD system. But if you disable it, it doesn't hurt anything. It just means you got a badass oil pump, belt driven too. But it will not do the auto start stop in tow haul or sport, but everything else it will, and it's very annoying. Also, just so you know, if you're going to be messing around with your fans, don't forget to adjust your grill shutters as well. Oh, and also don't forget to zip tie your right in front of where the snorkel collects air. What's funny is that the shutters, when they're closed, the air is coming through the grills. It hits the shutter and goes like this, right? And it blasts air right up underneath where that snorkel is. There's a trick though that can potentially help you at high speeds. At high speed, this is why I was talking about the grill shutters. At high speeds with low cooling request, which means that your shutters are still closed. If that air comes up and hits the bottom part of that insert right there, it can fold it up and it'll actually block air from being around. And I noticed that when I zip tied that down, my KPA went up by about 1.5, which is to say it went up by about 1.5%, which is really good. It's a big improvement. So don't forget your zip tie trick. The truck's outside, or I'd walk this thing out there. It's dark right now, or I'd just show it to you. It's pretty easy. It's drill a couple of holes and fish your zip ties and zip, and you're done. You just want that thing to remain down and not be able to flop around like that. What other tips and tricks can I come up with for you? For the 4th gen, I will tell you transmission pressures, all of the stuff that you would normally, like for a Mustang, start to fool with. They've made a lot of improvements with the 10R80, and most of it you don't even have to fool with. I mean, you're mainly into this thing for shift adjustments, shift scheduling, and that's really it. I've got not that much. I've got some stroke pressure adder, but just a little bit. I did not mess with anything on downshift. My downshift is clean, no pressures or anything like that. Of course, shift scheduling I did, but nothing under that. Also, torque converter. One of the questions you may end up with is the lock and unlock for the torque converter. You know what? I may end up putting that back to stock. Let me look at something real quick. I'm going to jump let's see, where's my, oh yeah, I switched everything over to sport mode. Made a lot of changes. I changed my unlock protocol over to what is in essence sport mode. And then let me look at something else. By the way, tow haul mode, pretty legit mode. No joke. Let me look at something here. Tow haul versus sport is basically identical. Yeah, tow haul versus sport's identical. So I just moved everything over to those more aggressive torque converter. And those are in the higher gears. I may end up putting that back, though. I may lock up the converter a little bit more in the higher gears, only because it can offer up a little bit more slip, but it immediately locks up. Make sure you disable your abuse mode and ramp up the truncation in gear values. Just make sure they're over what the truck will make. That's about it for that. Let me get back to you guys. Sorry, I wandered off into my wandered off into HB Tuners, but thank you very much, Nitro. I appreciate it, man. Hard Rock is in. What's up, man? It's good question. Can you have too high of an octane, or is there a risk higher than 93 is run? It depends. So fuel for fuel. Let's say we're talking about an unleaded race gas, Sunoco 260 GT, for example, 110 octane. Versus, let's say, I don't know, 89 octane, because that'll apply for the 5.7 Hemi pickup trucks. It will not hurt anything to run the 260 GT. It absolutely would not phase, hurt, harm, damage, cause any problems or anything along those lines. The only thing that it would do is it would just make filling up more expensive. If you don't need the octane because you are not fighting a knock issue internally, then it's not that big of a deal. Because if you don't need it to fight knock, then it's there for no real reason. The only time you've got to be careful with octane is if you're getting your octane source by mixing in an oxygenated fuel. Alcohol, for example. And this is where the oxygen is. Oh, see that little OH right there? That's your oxygen molecule. So it is basically C2H5O5 or OH, dicarbon hydrogen. And anyway, the OH, that extra oxygen is in there. Anyway, long story short, there's not as much energy in that molecule, but it is oxygenated. So you're going to need to run more fuel, and that's when you'll have a higher octane, even in a mix, but your fuel system may not be able to deliver the mass of fuel that you need to get where you need to be in terms of power. So fuel for fuel, no, you're not really going to hurt anything, provided, here's the other thing, so that's octane, just octane in the general sense. Now, how do you get to that octane? Is it an MMT play, like the way that Boostane ramps up octane? In that case, there could be some, dusting of internal components, although it's not that big of a deal. There's people that run Boostane for what seems like forever and don't ever have any issues. I don't really care what color my spark plugs are in my cylinder head, as long as they're doing the zippy zap zap thing that they need to do. You're never going to have a problem with more octane, at least not the kind of problems that you can have with less. The other thing that here's another way to think about it though. Let's say you have a car tuned for 93 octane and it's 93 octane and it's a really solid, not necessarily at its limit tune. And you're getting solid 93 octane. Let's say if you want to run 5 gallons of Sunoco 260 GT in that car, what you would do in that case is just ensure that you have a solid 93 octane. What you don't want to do is you don't want to run into a situation where fuel quality becomes an issue, but you're thinking that you've got a solid tune on a particular octane, but then you get a crappy tank of gas and then you get into bad knock retard, things like that. Don't try to cheat up your octane to tune to. Perfect example of this is the Hellcat. Guys, I did not run Boostane, didn't have to. But here's the thing. What we would run into is, okay, well, you have a car and you're tuning it for 93 octane and they've got some kind of an octane modifier in it. It's like you're tuning it on race gas. Not that there's anything wrong with it inherently, but human nature is what it is. People forget to put the Boostane in. They freaking forget to put the race gas in. There's a lot of whoopsie daisy that can take place. So, with my car, there were times when it was really cold where I would do A/B comparisons with and without Boostane from the same gas station, and I wouldn't have a difference in knock retard numbers. I was like, okay, I know I'm good. I don't have to waste my time with the Boostane thing anymore. My gas quality is good. But I would still look at it a little bit sideways, and I'd pull that 1 degree out that I thought that I could try to get away with. And it never impacted the performance of the car. So I know it's kind of a weird answer to your question, but On the surface, no, there's nothing wrong with that, having extra octane, but make sure it's octane coming from the same type of fuel source. And the reason why I like to bring up 260 GT is it's 10% ethanol, just like your gasoline would be out of your top tier gas station around the corner from your house. But don't ever make the mistake of tuning your vehicle on an octane modified tank of gas. And I'll put it to you like this. You don't rely on your tuner in this type of a situation to just know that you've done such a thing, because every one of these cars is a little bit different. Every one of these cars is its own little snowflake. And we've had cars that would throw a fit if you tried to throw more than 17 degrees of timing at them. We've had other cars, like talking about the Scatties, we've had other cars where they would soak up 19 degrees of timing and you wouldn't have a clue why. And when you start to see that it's going a little bit outside of the range of what's normal, that's about the time you just go, crap, this thing's got some kind of a modifier in it. We're going to have to go with known values. And that's when having a car on the dyno is great, but at that point you just go with standard known values. You can't really do a true dyno tune, if you will, because you're afraid you're going to, be a little bit too aggressive and run into a problem. The good thing though, is that the NA Hemis, they're not really super timing sensitive. They are up to a point, but then after that, they kind of flatline. Skids, am I running E85 now exclusively in Whitey? No, I am running 93 octane almost exclusively in Whitey, although Whitey will be getting a tank of E85 here pretty soon, just because it's fun. But it's the truck is a lot of fun to drive. I am just itching to put that thing up against a one of the new H6 trucks. By the way, if you guys haven't had it, most of y'all think may have already seen it just based on the number of views that it got. Didn't think this topic would be so popular, but the video on the Hurricane 6 not having a dipstick has really touched a nerve with a lot of guys. So thank you all very much for the support on that video. I do appreciate it. I don't know why they have done that. I don't know why that is now such a, I don't know why you would only run an oil level sensor in a vehicle that is going to be more or less self maintained by a lot of guys. It's a pickup truck. The thing is, a lot of folks, man, overwhelming number of guys were saying, well, the BMW has had da 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 da. I go, okay, cool. It's BMW, thumbs up. I'm not going to run like Mercedes. I'm not going to run a true, evac system on those things. It's what you'd have to do, right? But to evacuate the stuff, but you would do that through the dipstick too. And I'll admit, I'm no expert when it comes to, the BMWs or the Mercedes. I had one, but my E63, but I can tell you guys this. When I found out about that engine not having the dipstick, I was shocked to find out that it wasn't that it didn't have, it was that it has only the technology and the sensor as opposed to having a dipstick and the thing. There's a lot of vehicles that have a low oil level sensor and dipstick. It says, hey, look, man, check your oil, bro. You're low, whatever that low is. And typically it's like a quart and a half low. Around a quart and a half is when it would trip the sensor. And the Mustangs have them. There's a lot of cars that had them. So that's nothing new. But to not even bother with a dipstick is weird, because I am so anal retentive as far as where that level lands on the dipstick when I am filling the crankcase of my truck. And the funny thing about that too is I will check it the night of, then I'll have the thing running and then shut it off, let it drain for 5 to 10 minutes and do that. that test. By the way, that's usually a little bit higher. It's rarely lower. But I'll run the thing, get the oil temperature up to say, well, on my gauge, it's just flat in the middle. But what you would normally consider 120, 130 degrees, minimum of 130 degrees, and then shut it off. Let it sit for 5-10 minutes. Go make a coffee, grab a snack, and then come back and check it. And I'll do it twice typically. So there's that, but not being able to go through that ritual would be enough to drive me bananas crazy, because, is full really full, or is it a little bit over full? And what is over full? Critically over full. And you get into all of that. And like, there is no explanation. And I have on my phone, I downloaded the supplement to the Grand Wagoneer. That's where all of this came from. I actually downloaded the maintenance supplement, and it goes through the entire process. What I did not mention was the procedure. It is a 4-minute long procedure for that vehicle to actually get you the after you've added oil to it. Let's say you add oil midway through, you still have to wait. There's this whole procedure where you turn the key to the on position. The vehicle has to be on flat, level ground-ish, as close as you can get. And then you basically sit there for 4 minutes, and it checks the level, and then the level pops up or something. I don't know. Anyway, it goes through the whole list of what you're supposed to do, the whole procedure, I should say. Like, man, this is a pain in the ass. Sovereign Zan, what's up, man? Zan, I think I missed that one, but it's not surprising. I mean, they did that with the transmissions. Oh, yeah, the transmissions haven't had it for a long time. And the thing is that the transmission, you'll know something's gone awry if you got a big puddle, or if it's not doing shifty thing anymore. That's when you know the transmission's bad. And the thing is that there's nothing being consumed in the transmission. There's no combustion action that's taking place to contaminate that fluid. It's in a more or less sealed environment doing its own thing. And because, again, it doesn't have any hot spots, it doesn't have any spikes the way that the engine would, and there's no blow by, there's nothing to contaminate the oil, you can do a fill for life. The oil doesn't go bad really at all. And since it's not being exposed to a lot of crazy atmospheric type stuff, the same type of being made to be more acidic through the combustion process, things like that, you just don't really tear up the fluid. Matter of fact, the automatic transmission fluid's practically oil plus detergent. So it's really hard to screw it up. But I'll give you an idea. All of the fleet trucks, none of them have had their transmission fluid changed unless one of the guys blew up a transmission and it got a new transmission. And I think we had four. I'm just going to say we've had 4 trucks that I can remember off the top of my head, that might have been a 5th, that had launched a transmission, but it had more to do with the driver than anything else. But anyway, that's what I'm my personal opinion. But the reality is that transmission not having a dipstick. Look, let me tell you what the problem is with transmissions dipsticks. For some stupid reason, I know the reason, but it's still stupid to me. You have to have the car running at temperature, cycle through the gears, park, reverse, neutral, all your drive gears, and back up into park. And then that's how you check the transmission fluid in an automatic transmission fluid vehicle. And the problem is that nobody does that, and they'll check it without having the vehicle to temp, and they won't go through the motions. And what that's doing is it's moving fluid into and out of valve body and just getting it at more or less a base level. And guys will add fluid, you end up overfilling it, and it's just a massive pain in the ass. And so that's one of the reasons why they're like, well, the oil level, we can see that guys are going to check their oil, but transmission fluid, probably not. And if you're running into problems, the thing's coming apart anyway. So, it's saying U660E auto 6-speed has no dipstick. Sovereign Toyota used that transmission on all 2 GRF EV6s. Yep. Newer transmissions don't have them. My 2-speed Power Glide, the 67 Camaro was the last vehicle I had with one. Yeah, a lot of the newer vehicles don't. So I'm saying heating and cooling breaks down the training fluid, though. Not really. I mean, it's transmission fluid is a very robust fluid. I mean, it depends on the engine. Or, I'm sorry, it depends on the transmission, though, with how it gets used and abused. Some transmissions do have fluid change and filter change intervals, and it's best to stick to those. But if you're running a real high quality full synthetic, and the transmission is designed as a filter for life, then you'll be in pretty good shape. Let's see. Oh yeah, talking about the universal standard. The stuff that goes into the HP transmissions is pretty high end stuff. About $11 a quart. Can't just use the old Mercron V. Doesn't work like that. But so yeah, that's basically what I am up to, guys. Just buttoning up. So what I did. It doesn't matter how much experience you have with something. You can always make mistakes. I always like to share my mistakes with you guys because it can be a learning opportunity if you guys are getting started with this. So what I did is in my shift scheduling, I had made a ton of changes to shift schedule. And all shift scheduling is shift points. And to give you guys an idea, for every accelerator pedal position from 0 to 100, technically 102 percent of pedal throw, we're going to have a output shaft RPM that will dictate where that vehicle is going to shift at. And you also have, and that's an upshift, but you also have to remember that you have the same thing trying to happen in the opposite, which is a downshift. The downshift number, the downshift output shaft speed cannot be the same or higher than your upshift. And the reason for that is that if that number is the same or higher, then the transmission will upshift, because upshift gets precedence. It will see that it is at an output shaft speed to downshift, and then it immediately downshifts. So what will happen is you're going down the road and it'll go upshift, downshift, upshift, downshift, upshift. And you know exactly what you've done wrong right there. It doesn't hurt anything because the computer, again, is going to it's going to prefer the upshift over the downshift, but it will downshift it regardless. So I had for my 9 to 10th gear upshift, I had that 80 RPM too low. That's right. 80 RPM. That's all it took. Anyway, it was supposed to be, hold on, I'll tell you. I mean, I've turned the wick up on this thing quite a bit. It was supposed to be, my downshift was correct. at 2,600 RPM. My upshift in sport mode was the thing that was screwed up. It was at like 2550. It's like, how do you screw that up? And it's like way on the other end of the transmission tail too. Like, uh-oh, I got that wrong. So anyway, when you make a little mistake like that, it's kind of funny because you're like, oh crap, I got to go back and fix that. But I've found that, messing around with the Ford has been a lot of fun. Truck runs great. It's fast. And one of the more entertaining things about it is just there is something kind of funny with that truck. And what it is the shift scheduling is pretty good from the factory, but it's like it always wants to be in a race. It feels like it's very aggressive. It's from the factory on downshifts. So anyway, I've been having some fun messing with that. And I say it like that only because I've tried to tune it out. I've tried to make it a little bit more streetable in the process. And so that's been the other side of what I've been up to is trying to make this thing a little bit more livable, if you will. Let me check in with you guys here. Eric is in. What's up, man? Hope you're doing good. Always good to see Eric in. Some are saying ditto. Good deal. Yeah, looks like Sauer and Eric are hanging out. So yeah, that's when it comes to just the latest, the greatest on all of that, that's really what I've been up to, is just trying to sort through that tune on the Ford, get it where it's supposed to be. And it's kind of funny because I get a chance to work on and play with some pretty interesting things, and I'm really looking forward to the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, because that'll be a lot of fun. If I get a chance to play with that Thruxton, I may end up bringing one home with me. It's pretty sweet. Those are fun bikes. I've been having a lot of fun with the Bonneville though. That thing absolutely rips now. And it's funny though that it did not, where I was going with that. What I was saying. So it didn't like the fueling that I was throwing at it. And I was going, man, I don't understand this. This thing should just be in love with the fuel map that I put together. And it wasn't. It was acting like it was overly rich, and which I couldn't figure out for the life of me. I don't have a dyno though to put the thing on, and I'm still running the air injection system on it. So it pops and makes a bunch of fun noises. But that at wide open throttle, it won't make that big of a difference, but at partial throttle, some of those systems are partially active. And so I don't think this one does a partially active setup though. The way I'm thinking about how it's put together, I don't think it could. Anyway, getting back to it, the bike did not like the extra fueling. So I pulled everything out and just left it at stock fueling and didn't mess with it. And that seems to be what the bike is happiest with, which I'm not surprised by that, again, because it is an X pipe that I'm running and not the drag pipes, which I probably should have done. But it doesn't really matter, because to be honest, guys, there's maybe, even with this bike, there's maybe a 3 horsepower difference between the two. Now, that's a lot of power on a bike though. But there's not enough of a difference for me to go pulling the bike apart. I'll tell you that. because it runs so good. It's got great mid-range torque, and that's really all I need out of that bike. I will say this. I know for a fact that in my tune, I have killed the speed limiter on that bike, but I think that there's something else going on in that tune where I've got a speed limiter, because it accelerates like crazy to 110 and then it fades off. And I need to get a data log and see if it's actually pulling. You just do a wide open throttle blast with it and see if it's actually pulling the throttle back, or if I'm just hitting a brick wall, which is not uncommon with motorcycles. They accelerate like crazy until they hit their terminal velocity, which is to say they reach a speed that the drag, they just don't have the power to push past that. And that's what happens when you got something with 80 or 90 horsepower. You can only go so fast. But it's coming along. I'll tell you what, that bike is a lot of fun to ride. In fact, with traction control off, which is also wheelie control off, that thing just off of every stoplight. I'm pulling the front tire off the ground with that thing. So that's always fun. I'm going to try to spend a little bit of time with the fleet this weekend. Tomorrow I'm going to be with, let's see, I'm going to be Fox Body, Daytona, T-Bird, Cowie, I think, are what's going to be run. I need to give the Bonneville a rest. I'm out ripping the Bonneville. Oh, yeah, that's what the last ride looked like. I don't know if y'all can see that, but yeah, I got to clean this thing up. And that doesn't do this any justice. That thing is covered in bug juice. I mean, it is bad. It's really bad. Oh man, I smoked some bugs on that ride. So again, the idea is, just seeing how the bike acts and how it does accelerating out to, accelerating that thing out to 110 miles an hour. And God, the thing is just a ripper to 110. And then it kind of lays over like it's got a speed limiter, and I can't find it. It's not in the tune. I know that I've disabled it, but it might just be a factor of how that bike runs. As far as the rest of the fleet, the Daytona just needs to be ridden. Classic bikes like that one, the golden era bikes, if you will, for sport bikes, man, they've got a lot of things that'll keep them off the road. And for about every hour that I ride that bike, I've got about 3 hours that I'm working on it. Seems like that seems to be the run and go at it, although it has lessened. And I don't know, by skill or by luck, I've been able to fix some of the gas tank leaks, and there's some things that are specific to that kind of bike that can be a bit of a pain. But at any rate, what I may end up doing is seeing if I can find a gas tank repair service for it. But we'll see. But the bike's running great, but I do need to ride it. The T-Bird does need to have some miles put on it. I just can't say enough good things about that bike. I've been having, every time I ride that thing, I find something else to really enjoy about motorcycling. Again, being able to ride, those big torquey, hot roddy like power cruisers. And it's hard to accept the fact that the T-Bird is faster than the Bonneville from a top speed point of view, but here we are. And then the Cowie needs tires. I was wanting to go for a ride with my buddy Chris this weekend. I won't be able to do that. And I probably wouldn't be very good company to have. At least I'd certainly be pretty significantly in tow, because the GPR 300s that are on that bike, they're not bad tires, but they're The bike it deserves a little bit better tires, so I'm saving up to put a set of S22s or S23s, whatever I can get a good deal on. Saving up to put those tires on that bike. So, Hard Rock saying my tires seem to light up easier in track mode in Challenger 392. My question is, will it damage my diff on dry pavement with street radials? No, not at all. Not at all, my friend. Get out there and enjoy it. That's the most important thing. No, it will not hurt your diff. It won't hurt your drive shaft. It won't hurt your transmission. It won't hurt nothing but your pocketbook because you can be buying some tires. And just remember the what was it? Was it Falcon FK 510s? Run those. Those are kick-ass tires. And I got nothing but good things to say still to this day about those Falcons. Absolutely love them. In fact, I would go so far as to say this, as far as just putting a tire on anything, I don't know of a brand that makes a better street radial for those cars than the FK 510s. And I've tried a lot of, I'll put it to you like this. They were good enough. I'm not going to say they're as sticky as drag radials, but they're a they're a true 300 tread wear tire. And from a roll, say at like 65 miles an hour, the throttle, I would get a little bit of tire spin out of the drag radials, and then they would hook. The FK 510s would give a little bit more, but not a whole lot more. And they're a street tire, so you can drive them in the wet. Now, I wouldn't say that they're a winter tire, but they are a true street tire, and they'll survive just like a normal street tire would. So I would definitely give those a shot. And then there's always the tried and true Atturo AZ850s, which I ran on the front of my car, and those tires survived a boatload of trips north of 150 miles an hour. So, yeah, I wouldn't hesitate to trust either one. I will tell you though that the FK 510s, and I, of course, with a 9.5 inch wheel, I would still run the 295 40s, just for the look, but they were crazy stable tires. Good looking tire too. Y'all know me. I'm just as into the look of it as I am. Well, I'm more, obviously performance is the key here, but they look good too. Hard Rock saying one thing with the 6 piston up front. Yeah, he's got a dynamic package, SRT package. Hard to find affordable parts. They are priced at $3,000. Gee, yeah, they are expensive. Luckily, I found Dynamic Friction brand for $850 parts and labor. That's good. Yeah, there's nothing cheap about those big brake cars. I mean, but they stop like a son of a gun, though. I'll put it to you like this, with the what was it, Power Stop 26s on mine. I had so many stops from over 140 miles an hour. They did great. They did really well. I would have liked to have put a set of lightweight rotors on that car at some point. Oh, skids. One thing I like about my RT Tele is just how smooth it was north of 100 miles an hour. Oh, yeah. That's the thing, man. I mean, it's based off of a platform that was designed to run on the Autobahn. That's one of the things about the Challenger / Charger versus the World that it just irks me to no end, because it would always get roped in with the Mustang and the Camaro. And it's, oh my God. I mean, the only things that those cars have in common are 4 wheels, 2 doors, and a windshield and V8. That's about it. I mean, I know that of course you're going to race them, you know what I mean? But God, to compare them is so difficult to do because the platforms that they're based on are just so different, and the mission statement of those vehicles just so different. So, it's just, Sovereign, I've never actually ridden in a Challenger or a Charger for that matter. So if you ever get a chance to, the Charger torsionally is a stiffer car than the Challenger. But they're both really good. And if you ever ride in a 392 powered Charger, that would in essence be extremely similar to the W211 E63 that I had. Loved that car, by the way. All right, saying completely different purpose-built cars. Oh yeah, they're no different. They couldn't be any more different. Like you can't. No 2 cars could be more different and still have 4 tires and a V8 and 2 doors. I mean, they're just completely different. You know what's funny too? The car that does not get the love that it should, and this, guys, if I ever get back into Mopars or, you know, if I ever get another Challenger, it would not be a Hellcat. I don't think it would be a Hellcat just because I can't have the kind of fun in a Hellcat that I want to have. I'm pretty stupid when it comes to certain things, and it's okay. So when it comes to bikes, let me put it to you like this. Every time I ride a bike, it's going to see 100 miles an hour. It's just gonna. And it doesn't matter what I'm riding. If it can, I'll make it do a triple digit number. Which is to say that I want to ring out everything that I ride. That sounded healthy. If he's going out to Vallecito this evening, I hope like hell he's got plenty of squirt juice in his windshield wiper thing because the bugs are nasty. Anyway, the problem with the Hellcat is that you can never really have fun with it. You can play around with it. Oh, neat, we did a fast 0 to 100. That car doesn't even know that it's not even breathing heavy at 100 miles an hour. Like it's not even registering as a thought. You know what I mean? It's just nothing to it. So, you know, that car doesn't really get exciting until about 135, 145 miles an hour. And it's because you can't use the power down low. It just lights the tires up. And although that sounds like fun, it's more annoying. It's like having a stacked girlfriend that doesn't know how to shut up. That's what it's like having a Hellcat. It's just, you never can enjoy the ride because it's constantly doing something that is annoying. You know, it's just something like that. That's the sense that I get with the Hellcat. But you know what you could have fun with? A 6.1 car. And I'm not actively looking for one at all. Don't take this the wrong way, but if I were to get another one, it would probably be a 6.1 car, and it would probably, black with silver stripes would be pretty sweet. And I would make a clone of the car that I saw so many years ago that got me back into Mopar, which is basically just a slightly lowered, black with silver stripes on either CCWs or some other aftermarket wheel. And that would be what would get me back into it. was going to say Sovereign has got to get him a Scat Pack Charger if he needs the 4 doors, but I prefer the Challenger. Dude, at least go test drive it. Yeah, you need to drive one, dude. You got to drive one. You've got to drive one and experience them for yourself. There's guys that say, oh my God, I've got to have a Charger, and then they drive a Challenger and they fall in love with it, and vice versa. So, Hard Rock saying most women are stacked, never shut up, but I accept that and don't talk back much. Yeah. So I'm asking, B, do you like the quad glass headlights for the Challenger or the current Halo style? To be honest with you, man, I don't even pay attention to it. So, I think the Halos look cool, but I'm 6 to 1, half a dozen to another with those. Did this thing just do an ad thing? God dang it. Some people may have just gotten an ad. I thought I turned that off. But I like the older cars, man. Something about them. Something about the older cars that I just I do enjoy. Hard Rock saying, are you ever going to get another muscle car? Yeah, I will. I don't know what it's going to be. I mean, will I get another muscle car? Maybe a truck. I'd kind of like to build a truck. But the thing is the stuff that I like is too expensive. And then the stuff that I want to do to the thing that I like that's already expensive is even more expensive still. And so I'm kind of on the fence right now with what I would like to do. What I may end up doing is just focusing on the F-150. It may get a blower. It might get turbos. There's always something that I can do there. There's a lot that's out there that interests me, but the stuff that also interests me, I'm not interested in it from a performance standpoint. I'm interested in it more from an aesthetic and a driving experience point of view. Because you got to remember, I do still have Foxy, and Foxy's a 351 Fox body car, runs great. Needs a lot of work though. And so I can get that thing back up and just dead sexy and badass for a lot less than it would cost me to say, go out and find, a Trans Am, like an older, like a second gen TA that I can build up, which would be the car that I would really it's one of the few cars I'd actually spend money on. Because you can have your cake and eat it too with one of those cars. You can have big block power with decent handling. Plus I could, do a lot of hoonery with a car like that and just have fun and not worry about the numbers, because, I've been a guy that was all about covering a number. I've been that dude. The racing thing, I've done it. Did pretty good, but I just don't. I'm kind of over it on one hand, and on the other, I've got other places that I need to put my money. And there's just no way that you can justify those types of expenditures if you don't have the revenue coming in to offset it. At least some substantial amount. I mean, it doesn't have to maybe cover everything, although you'd prefer that it does. But right now, messing with the bikes has been a lot of fun. And, it's not to say that I don't get back into Mopar at some point with one of the new Chargers, but I just cannot, I just can't seem to, it's like I'm trying to push this desk. Like the harder I push, the harder I want, the further away I get from the goal of, talking myself into buying one. Shit, man, I'd rather buy, 2 or 3 bikes than go through the headaches. And the other thing is this, the vintage stuff that I do like. Oh, crap. How do you say it? Okay. So they're garbage. They're junk. And it's not because the car is a bad design or because it's from an era or whatever. It's because many, many, many of them have just been, it's like spray and pray, just, they're flipper cars and they can look amazing even when you're standing right next to them, but they are just shoddily put together, lots of I've heard horror stories with guys with these cars. So you really have to know the car that you're buying. And that's kind of another reason why Foxy is really moving up the ladder as far as cars that I want to work on, because to be honest, I don't trust any of the other vehicles that you might pick up. And I don't want to have someone field dressed in the shop. And you're out there replacing grommets, rubber parts, where you have to disassemble an entire car to replace these things. It's a nightmare. It's just oh my God. And the car that I want the most, the car that I was desperately seeking, is the one that is the worst to buy, which is the C3 Corvettes. Golly, those cars are hell on buyers. And when the market started really taking off on those cars, people would find a 68, 69 convertible, for example, and they would do a real solid, fiberglass fix cracks and all this other stuff, but they wouldn't address issues with the frame and the underpinnings. And the problem with those cars is that everything that ain't fiberglass can still rust, and it does. And those chassis flex a lot. It wasn't really until the 69 was a good year for was a good year for this chassis stiffening, but it still wasn't there all the way. I think it was like 70 or 71 before the chassis was beefed up. Even still, you need to beef them up. Long story short, my dad's vet, going over railroad tracks, the hood would pop up just because the thing flexed so much. And that was a big block car. So you've just got to be kind of careful with those things. And what I found was, you can have something that looks amazing and you put it up on a lift and you find out that the thing looks like they just dredged it out of a lake. I mean, it's just, and it's one of my all-time favorite cars. And it's because I grew up around one. But, that car was fast. The car was real fast, but it definitely needed, could have done well for some chassis stiffening for sure. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Jim saying Hard Rock Vermont brings up something I've always wondered about. Why it feels so different? The Charger handles like a more modern car. The reason, I'll answer that for you right now. The reason for that is the Charger begat the Challenger. The 300 begat the Charger in the beginning. So anyway, the Charger, the platform itself, the LX platform, was designed as a 4-door platform. Your B pillar right behind the door is closer to your A pillar, and the Challenger just doesn't really have one. It's got an A and a C pillar. There is no B pillar. So the car is torsionally more stiff. And you notice that getting in and out of the car, the door on that thing is like that wide. And you know, that adds in some of the flexy nature of it, but it's an independent rear car and there's plenty of chassis rigidity there, but that's in essence the reason. From a torsional rigidity standpoint, the Charger is just a stiffer vehicle. And I will say that the Charger gives a little bit better feedback through the steering, and I don't know why that is. Maybe because it doesn't flex as much. So I'm saying, how about a Firehawk? Firehawks are nice. Firehawk saying Burt Reynolds TA is sick. Yeah, they are. My dad had a gold one. So I'm saying Boss has a 2001 10th anniversary Firehawk. Yeah. And back then, 335 horsepower was a lot. That's a torquey. It's an LT1, I think. In that, no, that'd have been an LS1 in that car. Before that, it was an LS6. So you're saying there's a faction of people out there that swear the exhaust on the Charger is better or louder than the Challenger. Thought that. The Hellcat exhaust is different between the two, but the Hellcat is louder. I prefer the exhaust on the Charger, frankly. This kid don't see a Charger makes him want to slow down. It's a cop. So I'm saying, yep. All right, saying stock, hard to beat my stock 392 H-pipe for sound and driving experience. My family didn't understand my obsession. Technically, it's an X, unless you put an H in it. I love the sound of 392. I mean, it's hard to beat a 392 for sound and just driving in general. So I'm saying his boss almost got sucked by a 68 Firebird 400. Hard Rock saying, I like Stingrays. Yeah. The first gen Fire, those are neat cars, but my gosh, man, they just look, you're so many years away from its build date, you know. Time waits for no man or car. The chrome wasn't aligned right. Yeah. Oh no, I was saying I don't like the sound of the Charger. It sounds like a tin can to me, and the exhaust far worse than the Charger. Between the two, for the Scat Pack and the Charger, there's not a lot that separates them. I will say on the Hellcats, though, there is a big difference. So I'm saying anyway, it costs as much as they wanted for the car to fix it. Yeah, that's always. I don't like that. I hate that. I hate that for folks when you get something. It's my dream car, and then it's a bummer. Skids. I'm with you. Carl said, I drove a C3 Corvette manual in the late 80s, early 90s. The dealer photocopied my license and let me drive off alone with it. I'll return over an hour later with a big grin on my face. I bet. Oh, Sovereign saying he's got a video of that one. That Firebird Candy Apple Red. Yeah, I came really close to buying a 66 Corvette. It was a big block car. And, you know, they always say, the one that got away. That one would have been a really good car to buy. And I still can't believe I didn't buy it. It's a 4-speed car. And at the time, it wasn't very expensive. And the reason why it wasn't very expensive is it wasn't a numbers matching car. It was a really good driver with 4-speed. Had a later 68, 69 steering wheel in it. So it had a slightly smaller, fit like a glove. With a bigger steering wheel, the factory steering wheel, it's like, it felt weird. But with a smaller steering wheel, it felt so good. And it wasn't like an L78. It was just a, you know, kind of a generic 396. Did it have aluminum heads? Had aftermarket aluminum. I think it had a set of Canfields on it or something like that. Nothing major though. I mean, we're talking, you know, 420 horse 396, maybe 450 on a really good day. and I didn't buy it. I don't know why I didn't buy it. I should have bought it. And really all I would have done to it, it looked clean. It was black on black and it would have been really nice. And I just didn't buy it. And I would have done the chassis stiffening stuff to it, and I'd probably still have the car. But such is life. Oh, sorry, the original color on that Firebird was yellow. That was a popular color back then. Oh, skids, the C1 and C2 don't handle very well, but the cool factor is ridiculous. Oh, it's off the charts. If you set up a C2 the right way, they handle pretty good. But you've got to put money into them. And that's the other thing. And I don't mean like money. I mean money, you know. So Hard Rocks is Hellraisin. I love that color. It's a good looking car, Hard Rock. This is funny, Sovereign. People seem to be bringing up Paul's new engine, not numbers matching, but does that really matter, though, if it was originally documented by Dodge? It doesn't matter because no cars are numbers matching. Cars haven't been numbers matching in decades. Numbers matching means that the engine and transmission are stamped with the VIN of the vehicle that they came with. Nobody does that anymore. No cars are numbers matching. So that's a misconception that people have had for a long time. And I don't understand, like the whole numbers matching thing, I think went away in like probably 1976, 1978 or something like that. So no, it doesn't affect value at all in that car. If anything, it increases the value because now the car's got a backstory. So, you know, people will pay for the story as much as they'll pay for the car sometimes. So in this case, I think it's a value adder, not a value subtractor. Oh, Carl saying he installed a Barton shifter, Richard Petty's garage front and rear strut tire braces, and Hurst Flowmaster exhaust in my Scaddy a week after taking delivery on factory order. Yeah, I know. Barton shifter is a must in those cars. I would definitely do it to mine, no doubt about it. But yeah, as far as Paul's car goes, it's not going to hurt anything. Matter of fact, you know, it's none of my business, but get rid of that thing. I mean, get rid of it. Not because there's anything wrong with the car, but because it's not living up to the hype. Nobody really cares about that car. There's so many things about it at this stage of the game that there are so many things about that car that at this stage of the game, there's a lot of people that are just not interested in it. You can't do anything with it on the street, realistically. You can't have any, again, you can't have any fun with it. And again, this is not sour grapes. If I were able to get my hands on one, I would go to the closest track, which is an hour and a half away. But I would make the trip, make the hits, put the content out, and I would be doing that every ass weekend. I mean, you would see me running that car all the time. You'd get bored to tears, just like you did with the Hellcat of all these ride-along videos. But that's what I would do. I would have a ton of documentation on that vehicle and would just anybody that wants some, come get some. I don't care. I would line it up against, you know, anything you want to line it up to, I'd run it. Win, lose, or draw, it wouldn't bother me. And but the problem is that it would get about as much love as my Hellcat did. There's not a lot. There's not a lot of takers on that car right now, it seems like. And here's something else. Not for nothing, but what do you like? It's a race car, right? What do you do with it? What's the race event you're going to do with it? Legion of Demons? I mean, really? Okay. I mean, I'm sorry, but I can't get worked up about it. It'd be a fun bracket car, and that's about it. It'd be a fast bracket car. Sovereign saying it sucks. Oh, shit. Yeah. It's a car I wanted Paul to get, but he got screwed up, man. You don't know that half of it, bro. Oh yeah, Hard Rock. The VIN's not stamped anywhere on your engine or transmission. X is in. What up, Professor B and chat? Hello. Oh, Paul decides to get rid of it. I'll still support him 100%. I'll put it to you like this: if Paul decides to get rid of it, what he gets to take its place would be more interesting than that car. Hard Rock saying I didn't get a 1320 for that reason. Only driving on the street. That's right. And that's part of it. I mean, if you don't enjoy it, if you can't really have fun with it, what's the point of even having it? And I got to tell you guys, man, that's the tough part for me is, and it kind of goes back to the bike thing too, for me. If I can't enjoy it, if I can't find a redeeming quality in a bike, I'll jettison it. And it can't just be because it's the fastest or the thisest or the thatest. You know, it's got to have the look back factor. There's got to be some level of pride of ownership. And pride of ownership in this case is, you know, not because it's a status symbol, but it's something that you are keeping up and you are actively, you know, keeping in pristine working order, so to speak. You know, you want to do that, not just get the thing out, rip it, and then call it a day. I mean, it's something that you want to be, you know, thankful for and feel blessed to have. And I think that this happens to a lot of guys too, by the way. When I say be thankful for and feel blessed that you have it, remember, Fight Club reference here, that which you own eventually will own you. And instead of being blessed to have it, it's almost like it's a curse to have the thing. And when you start getting into building hot rods and race cars and things like that, you don't have to go too far. I mean, you can talk to somebody that's ever owned a boat and they'll tell you happiest day, bought it, sold it, whatever. That's how it is with hot rods and race cars. It just works like that. There are a lot of guys that will shit all over the Demon 170 because it's not fast enough, because it doesn't and it won't fit into a racing class. There's a lot of things about the Demon 170 that again, it's a bunch of hater ass folks that will say these types of things, but it's the reality of the world that we live in. Like, I can tell you that and in a bubble, in a vacuum, I should say, that car is amazing. I mean, it's an amazing piece of technology. It's a little bit like it's coming to the table a little bit late to the game. There's some technology that it incorporates with the E85 sensor and things like that I feel like the cars should have had 10 years ago. So there's that. But you have to remember that, you know, well, you have to hope, not remember. You have to hope the direct connection is going to help waterfall some of that technology into existing vehicles. But you've got to remember that they're under no obligation. And I don't know. So for part of me just kind of when it comes to the 170, because if the technology doesn't waterfall for everybody else, it's kind of a waste for me. But the other thing is that the new Charger being all-wheel drive, 540 horsepower, there's going to be some direct connection upgrades and updates for that thing, which is cool because they're the only ones that have access to that operating system right now. So, updates and hot rod, things for that engine, that'll be great. But, but so there's that for that car. But then so many people have a bad taste in their mouth with Dodge as it is. Is that thing even going to gain any traction? And here's the other problem. You guys have heard me, the pornographication of the car culture in general. Nobody turns on Texas 2K, Florida 2K. Nobody's looking at those types of events and are wanting to see normal cars. These are things with billet blocks. And I say things because they are the car in image only. The underpinnings, the transmission, the engine, the fuel system, the interior of these things, the suspension and all of that is completely modified in these cars. They only look like the car that they're based on. And you can say, well, they've got a VIN tag and whatever. But they're about as far away from what they were built as you can get and still call it the thing that it is. So, but everybody wants to see that. They want to see the 2,500 horsepower thing or the 14 or 1,800 horsepower thing. Nobody really is all that interested in the 1,000 horsepower thing because everywhere you look, there's a 1,000 horsepower car these days. It's like like there's no sweat equity in this. I guess for guys like me that, back in the day, we'd spend a king's ransom to get 1,000 horsepower, and now you just kind of, walk past a cat-sized Sierra, throw a fuel system turbos and let her eat. Ta-da, 1,000 horsepower to the flywheel, and you just, you accidentally get out there and run crazy numbers. Same goes for the Coyote stuff too. So, you're in a sense kind of screwed because you've been so desensitized to what is really, really fast that you don't even see the stuff that is super badass. You just find out that you're just kind of, swimming in this sea of, 15, 1,800 horsepower cars. And the thing is everything is capable of making that with an LS or a Coyote. So, there are some inherent limitations to the Hemi that you got to address if you want to make big numbers like 1,800, 2,000 horsepower. You got some work to do. And for a longevity play with the Hemi, I say that only because, you get to the big power numbers, you're going to be swapping out engines all the time anyway, but it's really expensive with Mopars. That's why you don't see them, in a lot of the race classes. It's not that they couldn't compete. They could compete just fine. It's just they're that expensive to replace the consumable parts that you replace on an LS or a Coyote-based platform. So, and the Coyote's already not cheap. Hemi's even more expensive still. So we're saying just get a 392 and have fun. Yeah. Oh, Rockhard, they only have the two drive modes, and I would never use a trans brake. I wouldn't either. None of us did. None of us that were chasing numbers equipped with our cars with trans brakes. And we all got hella lights too. So, we're racing each other as much as we're trying to get a number. Skid saying I would have driven a 1320 on the street before an SS or a 170. Oh yeah, 1320s are great cars. Oh, harder I get a C170. Not only are they overpriced, but there's a stigma kind of attached to them that's a little bit unsavory. I was going to say, or a Hellcat for that reason. They sound awesome, look awesome. Then on the street, the Pistar V6 leaves the line before them. They're all still spinning. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the all-wheel drive variants are hell to deal with on the street. the worst case scenario you can find yourself in is to bump up against some guy with a regular cab short bed or an extended cab or a crew cab F-150 that's been heavily breathed on, like it's got a blower or something like that. And if the guy, as he's coming up to that stoplight, pushes the button for 4-wheel drive, you still have to have some roll into 4x4. But you get somebody try to play with them in that respect, and it's going to get ugly real fast. All-wheel drive is the big difference maker. And now we've got some pretty heavy artillery that's all-wheel drive. So that is a very good thing. So, but guys, with that, we are coming up on an hour and a half. Good show tonight. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Oh, hang on a second. But listen, guys, I appreciate y'all hanging out. Get out there and do cool for somebody. Chances are they need it way more than you know. Nitro, thank you so much for the support. I do appreciate it. Hope that helped you out. And with that, guys, I got to go do a road test. So we will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks again, guys. Adios.